It is the new year 2023, and Malaysia is still plagued with the same issues as hopes for turning a new corner continues to be rattled with reports of child abuse, abandonment, as well as death. No child should have lived in constant fear of violence, but unfortunately, some do, as they are left helpless and vulnerable. Who is to be blamed? What more can be done? And any laws or reforms that needs to be looked at right now? But whatever it is, the ultimate question is, are children safe? That's what we're going to be discussing today on Wacana English Edition Live. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow viewers. You are now watching Wacana English Edition live with me, Mio Adlan, taking you through another episode of the show that gives our international and English-speaking viewers insights into the political, economic, and social landscape of Malaysia. And on today's episode, the first one, in fact, in the year 2023, we will be covering a topic that we have been seeing, having plaguing on news, on TVs, and on social medias, which is child abuse. It is a very, very serious topic. It is a very, very serious matter that we want to bring to all of our fellow viewers today, because every year, in fact, in Malaysia, it has been reported that 1,000 children are victims of child abuse and neglect, showing an upward trend since the year 2019. And for the past few weeks alone, we have seen multiple cases of abuse, violence, and neglect against children. And some were saved, thank God, and although they may suffer from trauma, others were not so lucky. We will discuss these things further in our show today. However, here we are today in the year 2023, as mentioned, January we're in, and asking ourselves, why is this still happening around us? Why aren't we protecting the children? Why aren't we protecting the vulnerables? Or maybe a strong reform is needed to further guard them from harm. And with that in mind, with that topic in mind, we would like to dive into the topic even further, and let me introduce to you our fellow panels that we have today. First of all, to my left, we have the UNICEF Child Protection Chief, Saskia Bloomer. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
Right, thank you so much for coming down. And also the gentleman in the middle, no introduction is actually needed. We have the former Inspector General Police, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Musa Hassan. Tan Sri, Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
All right. And beside him, we have the Senior Law Lecturer, Dr. Farah Nini Dusuki. Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam.
All right. And at the furthest, we have the Yayasan Child Kit founder, Dato' Dr. Hartini Zainuddin, together with us. Assalamualaikum, Dato' Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam. How are you?
I'm good. How was the travel coming down here?
It was fast.
It was fast. I believe so. It's definitely something that you didn't anticipate, having to travel that quickly to our studios here in Karangkrab.
Yeah.
But no matter it is, we appreciate, thank you so much for all of you panelists for being with us together here to discuss about this very, very serious topics about policies and protection. Are the children safe? Let's kick things off, shall we? I would like to go to Dr. Farah first. It is clear that we have laws, we have policies, and the authorities in both by states and non-state bodies, the government and non-governmental bodies, but has it been implemented effectively? Where does Malaysia stand in terms of safety and protection of children? Because reason why we're asking is that normally people come up with policies, but very much so sometimes the action that comes with it is always late and it's not really that prompt where it should have been. Your comments, Dr. Farah.
Well, difficult question, really, isn't it? Because if you want to know the reality, unfortunately, we are not quite there yet. We do have policies, we even have a comprehensive law, but we have issues in effective implementation and enforcement of the law.
All right.
Yes.
Why does that happen, to your opinion?
In my opinion, it's because how we perceive children in the first place. You see, because if we do not prioritize children, We may have the best laws in the world, but we may not be enforcing it to the best interest of children. Why do I say that? Well, first of all, they are persons of their own rights. But if we regard them as objects of concern, we will just be looking at them as children. So that is why when we, for example, we want to enforce the law, we have other priorities, we look at other priorities first and not children. We talk about safety, for instance, is it really safety that we are concerned about or convenience of parents?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's very eye-opening when you think about it that way. Coming to you, Dato', that's sad, isn't it? When you think about how people are labeling children as just objects and they're not really prioritizing their rights, their will as well, because again, they are the futures of the world and they should be taken care of.
Absolutely. I think what's telling is a comment made by a child I know who said to me after the last big case in the papers where the child actually died. I said, why do you think this happens? And he said, well, because we don't vote. And that's a very cynical, truthful, painful comment made by a 10-year-old who tells me children don't vote, so nobody cares really. And don't forget, in many, many parts of the world, not just Malaysia, children are seen not just as objects, but as chattel, as properties of the parents. And therefore, the responsibility or ownership in some ways of children lie with parents, which is an absolutely archaic viewpoint on how we view children and their rights.
All right. Funny you should mention that, how Malaysians perceive children in that sense, because we do have an outsider over here in Saskia, coming all the way from Europe to join us, not just for this show, obviously, because she is a UNICEF representative. Coming back to what Dato' Atini has actually mentioned, that's how, normally people perceive children as their rights, as their objects, as their materials, hence why they need to be taken care of, but not so much as how people should perceive them as an adult, for instance. Does this actually happen from where you're from, in European countries, for instance, or are there any differences in how children are being treated?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. I think, first of all, coming to Malaysia, I think it's a very child-friendly society overall. It's, we enjoy being with children. When I go with my son in public, I think Malaysians always want to interact with children, and I think that's very different to a European context where, we're more the child should be quiet and behave. However, what I do think a major difference is that the investment into keeping children safe has been lagging behind in terms of the child protection system in Malaysia and the investment that is needed, in the social service workforce, in child-friendly justice systems. These are issues that we need to look at.
Yeah, those are the kind of things that we definitely need to look into a bit further. Now, obviously, I don't want to keep Tan Sri there hanging all by himself. I do want to come back to you now, Tan Sri, because the cold hard fact states that 531 child abuse cases were reported within the first 8 months of 2022. That's very alarming to think about it. And from that, 201 of them are being children under the age of 6. So these are not even primary kids yet. This is a conservative estimate, and it has definitely increased since then. Why does this keep happening year in, year out? As mentioned at the earlier of the program, it's been trending upwards since 2019. Why do you think this is happening, Tan Sri?
I think parents should protect their children. That's number one. But I think in Malaysia, there are quite a number of factors where the parents neglect them.
Okay.
Number one, I think it's because of family breakdowns.
Okay.
For example, they had quarrels in the house, they do not care the child properly, Then, because of that, I think children have been victims by their parents themselves. Okay?
Right.
For example, when a single mother, when he has a stepfather, or having a boyfriend living with her, but of course, the child is being neglected because the partner is together with her, but they don't take care of the child properly. Actually, so these cases happens. Many cases happens like this, where the child is being abused by the stepfather or the boyfriend themselves.
Yeah.
So we have to ensure that this shouldn't happen. We have stringent laws like the Protection of Child Act. In the law, you say that if you neglect a child or you expose them to danger, it is an offense. In fact, before I tried to take action against their parents, the parents themselves, for neglecting a child. For example, they go shopping. They, in a push cart, the child is outside the shop.
Okay.
You see, so people can just take away the child, just like that. So I used to. There was a case that happened. I used to recommend to charge the parents, but of course. It's up to the prosecutors whether they want to charge the parents or not. Yeah. But if we don't enforce the law strictly, I think we won't ensure that the child could be saved. Yeah. The safety of the child will be neglected.
Yeah, we've actually spoken about this offline earlier. There's actually a fine line to differentiate between neglect as well as being an accident. It all depends on how the situation is and how the prosecutors look at it and what the situation entails. But coming back to these numbers, I want to go back to Dr. Farah. Again, as mentioned, trending since 2019. These are the kind of trends that you don't want to happen, going upwards in regards of child abuse, neglect, and so on and so forth. This definitely coincide with whatever happened within that time during the COVID-19 pandemic, where everybody had to be, in their own houses. People were complaining about having mental issues and whatnot. And unfortunately, kids became their punching bag for no apparent reason. Your comment, Dr. Farah?
Now, not just, beyond the pandemic, the nature of child abuse is secrecy. You see, due to the dynamics of childhood itself, children, if they're very young, they don't even have the linguistic abilities to complain. They can just suffer in silence. You see, even when they are older, you don't want to talk something against the people that they love, their parents who commit the abuse. So that is why child abuse mostly happen in the secrecy or in the privacy of the home. Yeah. And pandemic just made it worse.
Multiplied
when you say, when you say after 2019 there's an upward trend, I think that's still conservative in my opinion, because we often liken child abuse to be like the proverbial iceberg, where the statistics only show the tip of the iceberg. You recall Titanic movie, but the huge majority of cases actually hidden. Yeah. And globally, if it's child sexual abuse, one case reported is actually representing 9 others unreported. So it's pretty scary when you think about it that way.
Yes. A ratio of 1 to 9 of reported versus unreported cases. Yes. That's an alarming number, isn't it? Dato' Atini, when you look at this, it is. I mean, it's becoming more and more of an epidemic, to be honest with you, with whatever that is going on. Because again, like what Dr. Farah has been mentioning, it's about secrecy, because people don't really want to share this out because of being shameful, because of how society will look upon you and whatnot. This stigma has to go, doesn't it?
It does. And I think, going back to Tan Sri's point, there has to be, I think, accountability on the part of whoever the abuser is, and most of the time it's the parent, and there is no accountability. We say there's the law, and if you're found guilty, therefore you should be punished, or there should be some punitive approach to, handling the case. But the truth of the matter is, we don't. There is no accountability. It's more of a slap on the wrist if you abuse your child, because God forbid the person, the abuser, is also the breadwinner, or the child is forced to or pressured to forgive the abuser, so that the family can remain intact, which is the most terrible way of passing on a marriage of accountability and cause.
Okay. As you can see from the screen earlier just now, it was reported that a child was strangled to death. A baby, not even a child. We're not even talking about a child who's 7 or 8 or 9. Yes. I mean, we're talking about a baby who was strangled to death by the boyfriend, as you mentioned, Tan Sri earlier. Coming to my question, you have decades of experience. I mean, you've been in the armed force. You've been in the police force for the longest time. When it comes to crime and investigation, what exactly is the missing link in preventing crimes against children, and how can the authorities actually do a better job in protecting them?
Okay, in my opinion, the community has a role to play too.
All right.
For example, neighbors.
Okay.
When you hear that a child is crying, I think you should report to the police.
As simple as that.
As simple as that. So
Okay.
that the police will check it. What's happening in the house?
All right.
If there's a quarrel between a husband and wife, the neighbors hears this, they should call the police.
All right.
So that the police will come and check
Yes.
them, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. But isn't that just being a nosy neighbor?
No, it's not. I don't think so.
Yeah, no, the act even protects
It's protect.
anyone,
Anyone.
who shares
Yeah.
information on children. Section
Alright.
116, it's 116 on protection of informers. So let's say a neighbor complains to the police, and and somebody, the parent will be angry and what have you, and the police can actually refrain from actually telling who is it. So protection of informer is a very important law to prevent cases from
Normally, the police will
continuing.
not reveal who is the informer
Yes.
who gave the information.
The whistleblower.
Yeah, whistleblower.
More or less, yeah.
Furthermore, the police, the Malaysian police, I
Yep.
think we have formed a child abuse unit
All right.
where we have experts to tackle child trauma and also to record statements from a child. Because in order to investigate child abuse, you need the testimony of the child to be corroborated.
Okay.
So it can be corroborated due to scientific investigation, for example, through the injuries that he received and all that. So if we can collect such evidence and also get neighbors to corroborate that,
Yeah.
I think it can do well in courts to get the case being convicted.
Yeah.
Furthermore, it is not only on so you also have daycare centers,
Yeah.
where daycare centers sometimes they also abuse the children there.
Yeah.
So I have before suggested to the government to put CCTVs in their centers so that everything that they do is being recorded
Being monitored and recorded.
and monitored.
yes.
Yeah. So
Alright.
so that's what I think we should do.
All right. We'll definitely be talking about the role that daycares actually play later on throughout the show. But I do want to bring back Saskia back into our conversation over here. Saskia, the Department of Social Welfare under the Women, Family and Community Development Ministry is actually mandated by the Child Act to fulfill a child protection role for all children in Malaysia. It's a mouthful, but it is very, very important for people to understand that. And this broad mandate includes the rescue, protection of children in abusive situations, the safe placement of these children, and the prevention of abuse in the community. Now, being an outsider, again, not putting you on the stand here or whatnot, but just wanted to get your opinion on how is Malaysia performing? How has Malaysia performed over the past decade from your analysis and from your research?
Sure. I mean, please do put me on the stand. That's why I'm here. First of all, let me say that the social workers that UNICEF has interacted with are very dedicated to their job and work long hours on very complex cases. Social work is a very complex and emotionally impactful work. So now when we're talking about the social workers that you were referring to, we have about 1,700 general social welfare officers in the country, and out of those, only 213 are directly dealing with children's cases. So that is a very low number when we're looking at the scale of child protection issues in this country.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to think about, even in the current economic climate, that investment in children also means investment into child protection systems. 213 is not enough in the sheer number.
Yeah.
We also need to professionalize the workforce. The social workers bill has been pending for a long time. This is something that the new government has said to be taking forward, and it would be a big step in professionalizing the workforce. But also, it doesn't all have to be on the government, right? There's really strong NGOs and CSOs that have professional workforce, and having that interaction and referral between the government and NGOs and CSOs is really important and needs to be put in place.
Yeah. Final word on this, Dr. Hartini, since you are a rep from an NGO down here. So
Yes.
what do you think about the matter? It's not a big number, isn't it? Less than 15%.
just to give you an idea, 213 social workers under Ministry of Women, and we have something like, 10 million children?
Yes.
Yep.
Just think about how many social workers per area.
Yeah.
We're talking about one government welfare officer per 30,000 kids, 40,000 kids, and in rural areas it's 50,000 kids. The numbers you cannot imagine one person being in charge of so many kids doing not just one work in terms of just going to investigate a case and stuff, but actually going to court, having to do a million other things at once.
Yes.
We don't have enough social workers. Never mind that. We need trained social workers.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't have trained social workers who actually major or have a degree in social work.
Yeah.
So, again, the priority, if we're saying the priority is in children, investment is a prior, urgency. And therefore, we should be saying, we need more social workers, pass the Social Workers Act, which, by the way, is more than 15 years old.
The bill.
The bill has been pending. We're talking about child abuse from even when I came back from America, when I first met Tan Sri, he doesn't remember. We were talking about a case, at the Ministry of Women, talking about child abuse.
Yes.
20 years later, we're still talking about what needs to get done, stop pointing fingers, the numbers are rising. And now because of the pandemic and the fact that, so everybody has been cooped up for 2.5 years, kids have not been in school for 42 weeks, all these cases have risen. Now what, right? And again, we're going back to intervention, not looking at prevention, and not talking about case management and what happens after, and it goes on and on. And again, I stress, no accountability on the part of abusers. What happens to them? Stop slapping them on the wrist. They need to get thrown in jail.
Yep, exactly. Just listening to what Dr. Hatimi just saying just now, it's so much. Again, 1 to 50,000. That's a ridiculous ratio that we're talking about here. Ladies and gents, fellow viewers, we are going to be taking a break for a short while because after this, we'll be coming back with the second block that we're going to be discussing about the reality of child abuse. Don't go anywhere, together with us on the Wacana English edition here live at Sinar Daily.
My name is Raja Fauzan from Coffee Star. I am a coffee enthusiast officer of this company. There are two uniqueness that we offer to market. Number one, selling coffee through machine alone. We don't have outlet, we don't have kiosk. And number two, the coffee that not just for you to consume, whatever you contribute to the growth of the company, we give back to society. Using smart machine that we created, then people can have a same flavor. Machine would never take leave, would never, have issue in leaving the company. So the machine will continuously work based on what we have set them to do.
Welcome back to Wacana English edition on Sinar Daily. So, guys, if you have not really sure what we're talking about here, we're actually talking about a very serious topic between our four panelists over here, and we want to bring you guys even closer to what we are sharing with all of our fellow viewers. Just to share with you guys as well, in the last week of December of the year 2022, a 4-year-old boy, get this, a 4-year-old boy in Johor died due to serious injuries, allegedly, from physical abuse by 5 of his older sister's friends. The child was placed under the care of his biological sister, and his parents were in prison for drug offences. Earlier this month as well, a 6-year-old disabled girl in Sarawak who was abused, then killed, and then stuffed in a sack before being thrown into the bushes. The alleged perpetrator is the mother's boyfriend. These are only 2 cases from what you have been reading in the news. And believe me, fellow viewers, there's actually a lot more out there. Another shocker involving a person of authority. A police inspector has been charged for allegedly rape and 3 counts of sexual assault involving a 16-year-old girl after she had gone to the police headquarters on the 28th of December, where she was working at a lodge, as she was working at, to lodge a report that she had been raped by her stepfather. These are just some of the recent shocking cases, ladies and gents. It is so alarming. It is so vile when you hear this kind of news, going through how it is a reality of what is happening within Malaysia itself. So let's start with Dato' Atini. Are these cases common, or are they actually isolated from your experience? It doesn't sound isolated, is it?
No, I actually think it's really alarming at the intense violence against the children. It isn't just hitting a child or, accidentally murdering. I don't even know how that happens. But it's the violence and the vile actions taken against a defenseless little, small child, and the abuse that happens to children of special needs and children who can't speak up. Never mind can't speak up, but have physical. I can't even think of the word. Well, special need kids. Who even worse can't speak up or do anything or speak out or cry. And we talk about what's happening with Bella. I think we can say it. And children who with special needs, who the violence was just going on and on for months. For months, for years, we don't even know, but because they can't say anything, they can't do anything. Nobody seems to care. Children with disabilities is an area that I think we need to look at. We're talking about abuse amongst regular children, but children with disabilities is an area that we don't even know the exact numbers. Children who are refugees, children who are stateless, children orang asli children, these are marginalized groups that we know hardly anything about because the numbers are not reported. So yes, as Dr. Farhanini says, the numbers are much higher. The violence is even more vile and intense. And it's I don't know, it's rage. It's like you hate the child. I'm like, you know what I say every time? Like, if you don't want the child, please give the child to me. You don't need to kill the child or hit the child. Please don't, stop it. Hand the child to someone who can take care of you. Can't. We can help to take care while you get your act together or whatever it is, but you don't need to take it out on the child. Stop.
Exactly. And Dr. Farah, that's a very passionate answer by Dr. Hartini, obviously. But coming back to you, Dr. Farah, as what you mentioned earlier in the program, it is just a tip of the iceberg. The numbers that is being reported is just a tip, as what you were referencing to. It's like an iceberg of a Titanic movie where there's a whole lot more happening out there. So unfortunately, it's becoming more and more common. Sad, isn't it?
Yes. I think the worst part is that we have the mechanisms to help prevent it, With the Child Act 2001 has been around for more than 20 years. They are mandated informers. 3 categories. The doctors, the childcare minders, and the family members. So what it means is that if a father is abusing the child, the mother, the aunt who's living together, has an obligation under the law to inform the social welfare department or just to call up 15999 Talian Nur to inform. Because you see, the purpose of this particular law is to bring cases up to that tip of the iceberg. But do the public know about this? Number one. And number two, what happens when these people or categories of persons do not report? Do we take actions against them? To the best of my knowledge, the duty on doctors have been there since 1991. But I have not heard any case ever being prosecuted against doctors for not informing, upon suspicion of child abuse.
That's the sad thing about it, Tan Sri, because again, we've covered this already earlier in the show. It's when, the police, the authorities can only act when there's a report, when there's somebody who's actually informing the authorities, hey, there's something happening over here. Why don't you guys go check it out? I suspect some fishy things is happening. But the reality of it is that not many calls are being made, not many reports are being made, and the authorities have their hands tied because they can't move unless there's actually solid evidence or solid report, isn't it, Nasri?
Like the case that you were mentioning just now, the police inspector raping the girl in the police station.
Yes.
He's not following procedures.
Okay.
Because when you investigate a rape case, it must be by a women officer.
Female officer, yeah.
Senior and woman officer. It is not a male officer who investigates a rape case.
All right.
So he's not following procedure. That's why that happens,
Yeah.
And it's very sad.
Yeah, understand. I mean, like, there's obviously SOPs that, everyone needs to adhere to. And unfortunately, people are, trying to go about it and trying to cut corners a bit. And it's so disheartening when these things actually happen. Saskia, coming back to you, again, from an outsider's point of view, again, putting you on the chopping block again, comparing Malaysia to other nations that you have been working with closely down the years, are there any similar factors or variables when it comes to child protection, as what Tan Sri has mentioned, as what Dato has mentioned, as well as Dr. Farah has actually mentioned? Any differences that we, as Malaysians, could pick up or tighten even more? Your opinion?
Right. So I think what has come up a lot is the issue of shame and stigma in terms of reporting. Do you get involved in another's family internal business as it's perceived? And I think that is a huge barrier that we see in many countries, and where I think the Child Act is very clear on that. The problem is with all these child abuse, neglect, violence cases is usually when it comes to the attention of authorities. This has been going on for a long time, and there have been many signs along the way where somebody could have intervened. So I think it really requires a national conversation where violence against children is not something that is seen as a stigma or something that is seen as reflecting badly upon Malaysia, because it happens everywhere.
Yep. All right, Dato'. We've had this conversation. Like you said, 20 years ago, you've had this conversation. Why are we still stuck?
Can I say there's a lot of things? We're always looking for a scapegoat. Every time the newspaper comes out with a case, it's someone's fault, right? When the truth of the matter is, it's everyone's fault. I'm going to go back to the Child Act and the history of the Child Act.
Yeah.
The Child Act is a cobbling together of three older Child Acts from 1963 and 1945. 47.
Wow.
1947, pre-independent. We
Okay.
took it, cobbled it together so that we could be part of the UNCRC, and we then now have to amend about 70% of what's in the Child Act. Honestly, if we wanted to do a good job, we should
New law.
we need a new Child Act, not a cobbling together of 1947 Child Acts and articles and Young Persons Act.
Right.
If we were really serious, we would stop doing amendments, wasting time, and just come up with what we know. That's number one. Number two, we talk about implementation of the Child Act. The truth of the matter is, the spirit of the Child Act is supposed to encompass all children.
Yes.
All children in Malaysia, not Malaysian children alone.
All. Okay.
All.
I get the fine print there.
All children, which includes children with disabilities.
Of course.
Do we do that? No. No,
All right.
we don't. We
Okay.
don't do that. Number three, the truth of the matter is, again, yes, parents are responsible. But if we keep going with, this is not my child, that's not my business, we're going to have this repeat itself. And you know what? I really don't want to be here 20 years from now speaking about the same things again. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to see Tan Sri again and say, hi, it's us again. Talking about the same issues 20 years
Exactly.
later. This is all
Yeah.
we do. Really, if we want change, then create the change, not cobble together and put, Band-Aids over a Child Act that really should go.
Yeah.
And we should start fresh.
And if I may add to
Yes,
that,
please. Yes, please.
beyond the Child Act, of course, it also requires a structural reform, right?
Absolutely.
It needs checks and balances, such as the discussion at the moment to have a children's commissioner, to establish a children's department. But I think in terms of the financial investment that comes with that, not just the structural changes, that is, it needs to come with that.
Yeah.
And when we were talking earlier about existing child protectors and social service workforce, I think it's important to note that
one
the
in 30,000,
spirit of
one in
the Child Act for all children in Malaysia, currently they're not being covered. So that is in order for them to be covered, we need an investment. And I think the last piece that was mentioned also throughout is really looking at how do we make the justice system more child friendly, because even though we know there's a low number of cases that are being reported, those that are being reported, there's also a huge attrition rate, meaning that once they are reported to the police, once they go through the justice process,
Then what
there's a lot
happens?
of areas where they can be re-traumatized
Yeah.
and maybe families don't feel comfortable and pull out. So how do we make a justice process child-friendly so that actually perpetrators are being held accountable and a trial is seen through as well?
Yeah, I remember the time.
yeah.
Yes, please, sorry.
No. I was just saying, look at the prosecution rate of success. How many cases of child abuse has been successfully prosecuted, and what kind of accountability and what kind of punishment was meted out? And yes, as much as we have this punitive approach to wanting to punish the perpetrator, we don't seem to have a system and an approach that actually protects the child during this whole process. Our Child Witness Act is horrible.
All right.
Horrible.
Pertaining to that, Dr. Farah, yes, you are one of the lawmakers. I wouldn't say lawmakers, obviously no. You I wouldn't say play with law, but you practice law. Again, I'm so passionate when we talk about this topic over here. You practice law all your life. After hearing what Dato' Hartin has actually mentioned and what Saskia has actually mentioned, it's about the policy. We need a new policy. New policy needs to be, a new child act should be out there with proper fundings and everything. What is stopping us?
A lot. And I'm not somebody who's all that keen on having reforms in that sense, because those kind of reforms will take time. So I think all this should go concurrently with public awareness, on children's rights, on protecting children's rights. Because whatever law that we have, even since 1947, but if the central matter is not resolved, that is looking at children differently, looking at children as persons in their own rights, and therefore we will respect them as children, you see, then we will not be able to change anything. Absolutely. You see, if we have change in how we think about children, it will change how the law enforcers treat children, it will change how judges treat children, it will change how doctors treat children, for example. It's not just another case, Trainings are sorely needed. You see, we have child protection system, but are the players adequately trained? Are doctors trained to identify between non-accidental injuries to ordinary true accidental injuries, you see? So, and that is the starting point, because when parents bring children to the hospital, emergency for instance, if doctors are not trained to identify, the child goes back to the same parent to be abused again, you see? So these are just one of a million issues that we have in child protection, but we need to make small steps at a time, and I think that should begin with educating the public, on their role, because they need to be the ears and eyes for children. Because like I said just now, children are defenseless, and the dynamics of childhood is such that they won't be able to sort of speak out. So that is why adults, and older children must be their mouthpiece. And I think that is one way.
You need an advocate, basically. Right? I mean, like to be your source of where you can actually spell out your concern so that the adult or the adult child could actually bring it forward and let that matter being heard across the board. That's that communication where I think that a lot of education needs to come in there, where children are not being left behind. They have this so-called medium in which that they can interact with to make sure that they feel safe. Speaking about that, Tan Sri, something controversial I do want to ask you. Why, to my opinion that is, you only see high-profile cases on the news, like celebrities or something with hoo-ha, with social media coverage and whatnot, but you don't really see anything else? Or is there not any other cases happening behind the scenes except for the high-profile ones?
In fact, there are other cases, but the high-profile cases is because of the public
media coverage as well.
And all that. Recently, there was a child who was found in the streets with all the injuries. So he was brought by the people to the authorities, and we sent him to the welfare department and all that, and the police investigating to find out who are the parents. So we are taking action against the parents because she has been brutalized with injuries and all that, and being out of the house with no one to care for him. So I think this type of news should be given media coverage. But it was only in social media, it's not in the newspaper at all.
So does that mean that only sensationalized type of news only gets the coverage and only gets the attention, and that's it? Saskia, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it might be a question back to you as you're from the media.
Okay. All right.
But I mean, to your point, I think we do need to have a broader conversation about violence more generally. I mean, they're the worst of the worst cases that get the attention, and I think maybe that also directs attention away from reading other signs of abuse. You know, it might not always be so obvious, but I think having strong relations with children around you, whether you're the neighbor or whether it's in the wider family, and seeing, getting a sense of how that child is doing, and I think most importantly, creating relationships of trust so that children feel like they can confide in you.
Yeah.
I think where there's often, because of shame and stigma, maybe you're not ready to believe a child, as Dr. Faranini was saying, the position of a child. Do we believe a child when they come forward?
Yeah.
What do we do with that information?
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing, because the whole stigma, the whole perception about believing in a child, as what was mentioned by all of our panelists, we need to take them seriously, because at the end of the day, they are children, and we need to stop this abuse once and for all. That is our hope, that's our dream. We're going to be taking another short break. Do not go anywhere, because after this, we're going to be talking about moving forward and immediate action, something that I'm going to be grilling Tan Sri about this. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us on Wacana English Edition on Sinar Daily.
Every day, we collect about 5 to 10 kilograms of coffee grounds. This waste can be used as a fertilizer. So for now, this year, we distribute the coffee grounds to individual and also Green Finger community at our neighborhood. For example, at TTDI and also Bukit Jelutong.
Hi, my name is Mohaini Mahmoud, and I'm the co-founder of Kiddo Care. It's natural that people fear what they don't know. Back then in 2018 when we first started, we were an online babysitting platform. And it was something so unfamiliar to most people. People are so used to the old model of engaging babysitters, pengasuh, People were used to the idea of a live-in maid, a live-in helper, someone who lives in your household to take care of your children. In 2018, we came up with the idea of, a stranger, another woman, coming to your house to take care of your children just for a few hours, and then after the service is done, that person leaves. My name is Renuka. I'm a working mom. I run a training and coaching business, and I've been a long-term user of Kiddo Care. And I think I'm also like strongly recommending my friends who are also in the same boat as I am, business owners who really don't have time. I think this is a very good alternative.
My real name is Punita Wati, but mainly Kiddo Care, and everyone knows me as Tabitha. I care to 3 to 6 years old children, and also there's primary school children also. So it's with children, I have no problem at all. So since then, when I get to know about Kiddo Care, I was like a surprise, you see. Oh, there is a service, something like this. And I know parents really need this.
My name is Renuka. I'm a working mom. I run a training and coaching business, and I've been a long-term user of Kiddo Care. And I think I'm also like strongly recommending my friends who are also in the same boat as I am, business owners who really don't have time. I think this is a very good alternative.
You are still together with us down here for the Wacana English edition at Sinar Daily. We are coming down to the last stretch of our topic today, talking about child abuse with our fabulous panelists that we have brought to you down here. Now, let's change gear a bit and let's talk about moving forward and wanting to take immediate action in regards of our children's future. Fellow panelists, I'm just going to read the question and I'm going to leave it up to you, whoever is going to pick up this. On January 18th, the Prime Minister, Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, has announced the introduction of the Independent Children's Commission. Firstly, why did it take so long for the government to establish this commission, and what should be at the top of their list? I'm actually called upon Dato' Hartini to actually answer this because you were quite excited with this question, I think. So I'm going to give it to you. Please.
So excited because what it signals to me and so many of us activists and advocates is the fact that the government is finally taking seriously the whole issue on child rights and child protection, that it does need, an independent body, ministry, department. Well, actually, ministry should be good. And so it's a step in the right direction. I cannot wait for whoever it is that's been elected to start work. I have a whole laundry list to give the person. I know that whoever it is obviously going to be very well versed in the law, and I'm hoping that, and I know that whoever it is, I'm sure will have as much passion and interest in protecting and upholding the rights of children. Right. So it sends a really strong message. And again, I'm reminded of my favorite quote, which is, children are the message we send to a future we cannot see. So what we do as a society reflects very much how we prioritize children. And finally, we're prioritizing children. So I'm very happy.
So, Dr. Farah, are you as excited as Dato' Artini then?
Of course.
All right.
Because as Tini has said, we've waited for this for a long time. And finally, with the right budget, of course, with the right support,
of course,
both government and civil society, I think the commission or the commissioner can move forward, more effectively, and put things in place in terms of being the ombudsman, isn't it? I mean, obviously at the moment, what is in place will not be able to enforce very much. It's just going to be overseeing matters. But it's as a start, and it's always good to start somewhere.
All right. So, Tan Sri, to your opinion, what is actually needed for this commission to be able to do its job to reach its goal?
This commission can be to advise people on child abuse, and also to but educate the public. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number three is to oversee government agencies, whether they do their job properly or not. Especially the police and all that, when they investigate on child abuse, whether the investigation is be done correctly or not.
Correct.
Okay.
So I think that would be good. Yeah.
All right. And Saskia, your opinions on the matter?
Yes, so I think in terms of what this position would need to be effective, I think the emphasis is on independence.
All right.
I think that's something that's being discussed a lot. And independence also meaning in terms of budget allocation and in terms of who this person or institution would report to. So, for example, having access to the highest levels, reporting directly, for example, to the Prime Minister or to Parliament, I think is really vital. Then we're looking at a good, well-resourced office. We need a proper budget allocation for the office to be effective. Child participation in terms of really making children's voices heard. And then lastly, it's also that the mandate also encompasses that this person or this institution has access to children no matter where they are, whether they are in child immigration detention, whether they are in prison, or no matter who these children are.
Yeah. Because again, the whole tagline is, the keyword is that children of Malaysia, as what Dato' Asina mentioned, not Malaysian children, but children of Malaysia. I mean, like all Malaysia of Malaysia. Okay, again,
children in
trouble.
Malaysia.
Yeah, exactly. That's why. Dr. Farah, I do want to come back to you. In regards of jurisdiction, yes, again, they do have a part to play. But to your opinion, to your knowledge as well, what would be the jurisdiction with the new commission, when they exercise their capabilities and their practices?
Well, you saw the screen just now. Datuk Sri Azalina said there will be 4 roles to play.
Okay.
And I think all of my panelists have already mentioned the 4 roles.
Right.
Yeah. So that is, I think, but in all practicality, I think the first important practical thing that this person ought to do is to map, is to do a serious mapping work. because it is always easier to build on something which is already there. You know, we know a lot of people are doing very good work. You know, Tini has been around for ages. You know, we have a lot of other NGOs. But the thing is, I feel that, you know, child protection is taking place in silos. You know, a lot of people are doing very good work, but in certain segments. You see, and the thing about the child protection system in Malaysia is that it is at the moment champion based. It is not system based, and I think all of us can agree on that.
Absolutely.
And that is what make it different from us and the European countries, for example, Australia, New Zealand. Because when it is system based, it doesn't matter whether you're in Perlis, you're in Johor, you're in Sabah, Sarawak. The system is the same. You know, the children will be adequately protected. You know, in accordance to whatever law there is. But when you say it's champion based, it is so much dependent on who is at the helm. You know, like if the institution is headed by somebody who's passionate about children, then, you know, you will have no problems with children running away from the institution, etc. You know, but when you change to somebody who's less passionate about children, who's taking on the job because it's part of the transfer, then of course, you know, you will not be achieving your target. So we have to strive towards making child protection system-based rather than champion-based as it's.
One thing I want to pick up from what Dr. Faris actually said, Dato' Atini, is all about communication as well, because as what you were agreeing to as well, all of the NGOs are actually working in silos and they don't really communicate with each other that well. By having this commission, it opens up a new forum, a new style of communicating to make sure that the needed are attended to at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I think, you know, the way we share resources, the way we share information, the way we share programs, the way we collaborate together is going to matter a lot. And I'm hoping that there is change and that there is much more collaboration and sharing of resources and information so that we all work together towards one common goal, which is to assist whoever the commissioner is to uphold those rights and protection of children, as we said. So yes, I think, you know, I think there is too much silo work going on. It's very territorial. It's very charity based. It's not rights based. So this new commissioner, I think, will be upholding that rights based approach, which means lots more sharing, lots more, and less silos.
All right, and Tan Sri, obviously the bigger question is, where is the money coming from? This obviously needs a lot of funding, needs a lot of backing from everyone.
The government has to allocate a budget for it.
All right.
It can come from these big companies and all that.
All right.
Where we can assist children, you know, and also from foreign assistance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dato'?
I think the public would be more than happy to help fundraise as well. I'm sure everybody is invested in wanting to protect the children in Malaysia. And I think, you know, if need be, the public, you know, could assist and help where's needed. We just have to tell them and to paint this, you know, to present this clear picture of what's needed, and everybody would be more than happy to help.
Yeah, exactly. I know Saskia can't really, you know, she really wants to speak out her point, but before you speak out your point, I do want to give that point back to you. That has always been a challenge in any country, in any organization, when it comes to funding, that because, like it or not, at the end of the day, without funding, you can't really, you know, do your job properly. So it is key to any organization, let alone in taking care of our children, right?
Yes. I think we need to shift the discussion around funding because there is, we have funding requirements to make these things happen. That's the cost of action, but there's also a huge cost to inaction.
Okay.
If we don't protect our children, if we let violence go on, this also costs society because what happens to children that experience violence in their childhood? Will they be contributing members to society? You know, taking it away, of course, we want to talk about it from a child rights-based perspective, but also, you know, given the realities of the world that we live in and how policy decisions are being made, from an economic perspective as well. It is something that we need to invest in because it's the future of the country as well. And if you, just to give you a number, UNICEF actually did a study in 2015 looking at the cost of violence for the entire region. The cost of violence against children alone is the equivalent of 900 billion ringgit a year for this region. So there's real economic cost to not addressing violence. So I think we need to start thinking on it from that perspective as well. And we need to make the economic argument, but the economic argument is there.
It's there, obviously. But ultimately, Tan Sri, I do want to give the spotlight back to you. how do we stop this cycle of child abuse? As simple of a question. Give us your thoughts. I want to hear at least 200 words from you.
Well,
sir.
I think the community has to be involved.
Community, number one.
That's number
Exactly.
one.
All right.
Then number two, the enforcement
Okay.
The law.
has to be strict on it.
All right.
Yeah, and furthermore, that the politicians will have to ensure that they really want to do it, to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because what Dato has actually mentioned, Dato Hartini has actually mentioned, you've had this conversation 20 years ago,
Yeah,
and the cycle
true.
is still not being broken. Why do you
Very
think
true.
that's happening?
Well, I think there's no political will.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I
okay.
feel.
All right, so there's
Serious
no
political
I mean, there's no
will.
bargaining chip. There's nothing for people to actually, rely upon to make them better, look better. Is that it?
Because people think that this is
Just children.
just children. They don't think that is very serious about it, because
Okay.
they think that it's only a family matters and all that.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Things
That's
happening
very,
behind
very
closed
alarming.
doors.
Yeah. That's unfortunately the society that we're living in right now. But we're trying our very best to make sure that we break that cycle, because that's what Dato' Atini has actually mentioned. We don't want to have this conversation again in the next 20 years with no actions being taken, with a lot of promises being floated out there, but nothing is being done right now. All right, we actually have a special person down in our audience to actually ask a question to all of you panelists. Let's listen out to our listener, to our viewer. Please, you have the mic.
Hi, good day. My name is Zaidi Azmi. I'm the Special Projects Editor for Sinar Daily. Okay, so I have two questions. Okay, but first of all, when it comes to child abuse, the conversation primarily centers on parental and next of kin abuses. But last year, the nation was shocked by the abuse of an institutionalized orphan. So my questions are, first, in the midst of multiple efforts being done to combat abuses in a familial setting, has the country overlooked the safety of the nation's parentless children in both government and private orphanages? And second question is, Malaysia says that it aims to provide a family-based care when it comes to orphans. But on the other hand, the government also enlists the service of private orphanages to take care of the orphans who were initially found by them. So what do the panelists make of this situation?
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for the question. Did our panelists get that?
Wasn't clear. The first one is
Not
not
that clear.
clear.
The first one
Not
was
that-
very
Right. The
clear.
first one, I think, what is the government, or should I say, what are the authorities lacking actually in regards of trying to implement the rules that is being there? What is stopping them from doing their jobs? And how do we move forward from there? I think more or less that's actually the first question. Sorry?
Often.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who would like to take this up? Yeah, Saskia.
I can get us started because I think we all have a lot to say on the topic. If we're looking at the estimated numbers, because nobody knows how many children are in institutions of various, formats, whether we call them orphanages or homes. But the estimate is between 50,000 and 64,000 children for Malaysia. That is a really high number for this region. The issue is we don't have exact numbers because a lot of these homes and institutions are not registered and therefore they're also not monitored. That again is something where, the child protection system, it's their role to monitor institutions, whether they're run by NGOs or charities or religious organizations or private persons. We obviously need to look behind closed doors and make sure that the standards in these homes are what they should be. But we also need to look at why all these children are in such homes. Because we don't have 50 to 64,000 orphans in this country.
Yeah.
There are a lot of children that are in institutional care because of other reasons. We're looking at large numbers of children with disabilities, something that Dr. Atini had raised earlier. And there we need to look at how do we support children to stay in their families, for families to be able to take care of their children within their own home, even though they might be poor and might not have the capacities. This is where a social welfare system needs to step in. So we need to look at the children that are in institutional care at the moment, but also prevent more children from ending up in institutional care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. First of all, most of the children in orphanages are not orphans.
Yes.
Right? They have families who can or should take care of them, but these families won't or cannot take care of them. So more of these family-based care programs should happen and be implemented in the very homes of these families so that children don't need to go to institutionalized places. So orphanages are not orphanages, actually.
Right, okay.
90% of them are not orphans.
I could see a bit of a sting in your eye when you were addressing that
I
particular
get
statement
to,
over
because
there.
I run to shelters. You know, I run to shelters, and I will tell you 90%, 98% of the children in my shelters have families. It's just that the families cannot or will not take care of them for whatever reason.
But
right?
like you said, at the end of the day, it's better for them to pass
Absolutely,
it to
we
people
should
who could take
strengthen.
care.
Yes, of course. If you can't take care of them, we should definitely take care. But you know, that's a very small number.
Okay.
The rest, actually, the support should be in those very homes and looking at alternative family-based cares, etc. That's number one. Number two, again, I really don't believe it's a matter of just resources, but our attitude and our mind shifts towards poor children who may or may not have families. The fact that, you know, and this is true, yeah, we have all these religious schools or sekolah pondok or tafiz schools and stuff who are not registered, have no child protection policies, you know, are run by you know, religious council members or anybody who actually just wants to open because you don't need to register tafiz homes. And there's no accountability again. We have a case now where children, you know, beat another child to death and the adults were not accountable. And I'm going, how do you open a home that's not registered, no child protection policy, someone died, and your home is still not closed? Why is it still open? So we don't seem to care. If you're poor and you're marginalized, you're poor and you're an orphan, or you're poor and you have no one to speak out and care for you, you are lost. That should not happen.
That should not definitely happen because, you know, with whatever it is, with the history as well, looking at the situation is something that, you know, one should be mindful of, you know, whatever the situation is. We are running out of time over here, but I do want to give a chance to all of our panelists to say one last thing to our fellow audience about today's topic about ending child abuse. We'll start with Saskia, please.
One last word. Yeah, I think we need to break the stigma and shame around violence against children. It is everyone's job to protect, but of course it is also, you know, under the Convention on the Rights of the Child, it is Malaysia's responsibility to protect children, and that comes with, you know, structural investment and attention to the issue.
Lovely.
I think all agencies have to collaborate together to ensure that we can really enforce the law properly. You know? And then, of course, we have to ensure that the policies that are being made by the politicians will support child protection. At the moment, I think there's no strong policies about it.
New policies, new work needs to be done. Dr. Farah.
It takes a village to raise a child. So definitely, you know, parents need to be supported. Adults need to be the ears and eyes for children, you know, and the laws must be enforced. You know, it's been so long now, and we cannot keep on saying we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough manpower and all that. It's time to say stop, you know, and start really, really rigorously, you know, be aware that children have rights of their own and we need to respect them.
All right. Dato' Hartini, to make sure that we're not back here 20 years from now talking about the same thing.
I'm going to use the logo for our Yayasan Child Kit, which is every child matters. Every single child. So let's do our best to protect every single one of them.
Every single child matters. That's very, very true. Thank you so much. We do want to convey our thanks to all our panelists over here. We have the Senior Law Lecturer, Dr. Farah Nini Dusuki. We also have the rep from UNICEF Child Protection Chief, Saskia Bloomer. founder of Yayasan Chowkit. We have Dr. Hartini Zainuddin, and as well as the former Chief Inspector General of Police, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Musa Hassan. Thank you so much, fellow panelists, for coming down to Wacana English Edition. And hopefully this gives a much broader understanding to our viewers out there. There you have it, because at the end of the day, what is us without our own children? You don't have to be a parent to realize how important it is for you to take care of a child's life, regardless of whatever age that they're in. They need to be taken care of. They are never to be neglected at any point in time, because at the end of the day, they will be the adults who will be the leaders of our country later, inshallah. All right, that's it for now. Once again, we would like to wish everyone out there a happy Lunar New Year, wherever it is that you are. We hope that you had a prosperous year ahead, the year of the rabbit. And make sure you guys subscribe to all our socials at Sinar Daily MY. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on YouTube, as well as Instagram, Twitter as well. Do give us a follow to make sure that you're abreast with all of the latest information around. That's it for now. My name is Mio Adlan. This has been Wacana English Edition by Sinar Daily. We'll see you guys again soon. Assalamualaikum. Take care. Bye.